from two dynamic leaders from the Jacksonville community. Dr. Tammie McClafferty, who is the Executive Director of Lifework Leadership and an adjunct instructor at FSCJ. She's just an absolute rock star of a leader, both in the Jacksonville community, and we're actually trying to convince her to come and do some teaching and collaboration with us at UNF, which would be fantastic. And she's joined by Len Chatman. Leonard is a motivational speaker that travels all over the country, helping to inspire students and leaders to really become the best versions of themselves. And this is just a great way for us to look at leadership through a new lens and learn from a variety of leaders on how we as students here at UNF can achieve both on campus and in the community. So we at the Taylor Leadership Institute are so happy that you're here. I'm Dr. Matthew Olson. I'm the director of the Leadership Institute, and thankful that my amazing team has helped us to make this a reality today. And we're so happy that you're here. And without further ado, we're going to get started with the pre-recorded session by Tammie and Len. And we're going to have it open in the chat for questions that both Tammie and Len will answer personally. So we have opportunity for questions and feedback. And this will be recorded so you can share it with folks moving forward. And anyone in your network, we'd love to have this amazing resource shared so that it will positively impact as many people as possible. Okay, so thank you so much, and enjoy the show.
Good afternoon. We are so excited to engage with you. We're at the UNF Leadership Series Workshop webinar. Did I touch on all the bases?
You hit all of at least what we know about it.
Absolutely. But let me tell you, our excitement is, I mean, it's high level right now. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll pass the baton over to Tammie. But I'm Leonard Chatman Jr. Actually, you could just call me Len, your friend. I eat and I breathe leadership. I love leadership. I'm born and raised here in Jacksonville, Florida. I've kind of matriculated and navigated in the corporate sector, from directors, positions to launching my own nonprofit. So I think I'm slightly qualified to talk about leadership, but leadership, in essence, it's not what you do, it's who you are. So leadership is just who I am. Tammie?
So hello, I am Dr. McClafferty. Am not a native to Jacksonville, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I have to give a shout out to my Steelers because I stayed up really late last night to watch Monday Night Football and watched our Steelers win.
Go Jags.
So quick shout out to my Steelers. But born and raised in Pittsburgh, been married to the same man, an awesome man, for 25 years. Have 3 children, Bailey, Creed, and Cannon. Bailey is a freshman at college, so I am experiencing college for the first time as a parent, which has been interesting. And then I have 2 boys that go to high school here at Nice High School. Leadership has been a part of my life. I don't think I meant it to be, but it's just become through my career. It really started, I was a teacher, and then we decided to start a business. And once I got into the business aspect and started getting staff and started realizing that I loved the piece of leadership of development. Like, I love developing my staff and training them up and helping them become the best that they could be. And so when I realized that that was a capacity that I enjoyed, I ended up going back to school, got some graduate work in there, and ended up doing my doctorate on leadership. And so that led me to be a professor of leadership at the university. And then it led me to my current role as the director of Lifework Leadership, which is a leadership development program here in the city for business leaders. So lots of leadership jobs and training. But like you said, I think at the core of leadership for me is always who God's made me and what I want to become in Him, which has really pushed me in that direction. So that's a little bit about me.
I enjoyed being around you, but you showed me leadership just a second ago because she gave a shout out to her family and I left my wife off. So if she's going to be watching this, honey, you know where my intentions are. I come home on time every night. You got paid for that?
Yeah, they told me.
She showed me leadership. So
it's all good. So. Well, listen, when we were asked to do this, and I kind of laughed, we talked about it a little bit. I think they picked Len and I to do it together. Len came through Lifework, the organization that I work for, this past year. He was one of the participants. So that's how he and I were introduced. And he brought a guest to one of the sessions, which was Dr. Olson. And so that's kind of how we got connected to him. And I think he invited the two of us to do it together because I think the uniqueness that we bring.
What is that? What's the?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask you before there's something too. Obviously, it's old and young, white and black, female and male. I was going to ask you your political party before.
Ugly and pretty.
I was going to say Democrat, Republican. I didn't know your political status, but
I'm kind of like Morgan and Morgan. I'm for the people.
There you go. So I think you have two people who value leadership and come at it from extremely different perspectives in what we both do and how we act. And so I hope that that's what we can bring you today is that diversity in leadership. That's what we're hoping to bring you today.
Absolutely. And not just today. We're talking about
we got a couple. We got a couple. Hopefully, if this one goes well, he'll ask us back. If you don't hear it, it's because this one was bad and they don't want us back. I don't know. We'll see.
Absolutely.
But what are we going to talk about today?
So we're talking to college students.
Correct.
So inevitably, we wanted to present something that was flavored or seasoned for college students, right? Makes sense. So today's topic.
Let me back up. I'm going to interrupt. I think what got us to this too was I am teaching a course right now at the university, and the course is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective College Students. So I'm sure all of you have been, read or been part of the Franklin Covey book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Then they came out with the 8th habit, and it's an amazing book, an amazing philosophy about effective people, about leadership. But they've now taken this and made it into a college curriculum. And I have had the privilege of teaching this class. And so as we started talking about it, I was knee deep in this class with college students, and we thought it would be a great way to bring this to you guys as well. So that's where we're going to start.
For sure. 7 Habits of Highly Effective College Students. That's it. I think it's really critical. There are 7 habits of highly effective college students. The one that we're going to actually talk about tonight is be proactive. Now, I know that it's being recorded, but this is going to be super weird, but I want you to repeat it after me. Be proactive. You can even do the little thingy. Be proactive. We want to give you the line of delineation between proactive and reactive. And the reason that we have to give a very clear distinction between the two is because if we don't do that, we're not going to be successful tonight, right? So I'll do proactive, and then I'll give the reactive to Tammie, okay?
So I get the negative one.
But you're always positive, though.
Oh, thanks. I wanted the nice one.
You wanted the nice one?
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
Take responsibility. That is the theme, the climatic theme of being proactive. Take responsibility for yourself. You take charge of your own life, okay? You take the mentality that I am the victor and I am going to win, no matter what. There's no excuses. There's no gray. It's black and white. You're either going to lose or the alternative. And we don't even discuss the alternative, right? You see how I just did with Tammie? She said that she was going to take the negative. No, she is not going to take the negative. She's just taking the alternative route because it's all about mentality. Be proactive. Take responsibility.
So the opposite of that is reactive. And as a leader, an effective habit, and a habit is something that we do over and over again. So this is a mentality, this is a thought process that can't just happen once, but it has to happen over and over again. And if we want that mentality of proactive, that mentality of taking responsibility, then that means we don't want the reactive mentality, which reactive is blaming others. Thinking of a college perspective, I had a student just today that came in and did not turn in the assignment that I gave them on Thursday. clearly gave him the assignment. Almost everybody else turned it in. This young man didn't turn it in. At the end of class, he walked up to me and he said, well, if you would have posted it in Populi, then I would have done it. Okay, that's blaming me on something that you were supposed to do. That was a reactive response. Clearly, he needed to just come up and say, I missed it. I should have done it. I didn't do it. Everybody else in the class heard the assignment. So reactive is when we blame other people. We blame our environment that we grew up in, our parents, anything that we can blame, our professor, but we blame someone else for it. And then that's the exact opposite, is then you have that victim mentality instead of victor. As a proactive person, I win. As a reactive person, it's always that response of, oh my goodness, how does this always happen to me? You know, right. Poor me. I'm always the one that gets cut. I'm always the one that the professor doesn't like. I'm always the one that gets the hard assignment. I always get put in the bad group. And that's that victim mentality, and that's that reactive process. And that's what we want to stay away from. As effective people, we want to be proactive. So those are the big differences, proactive versus reactive. Proactive leaders, and I think this is great how he says it, so I'm going to read it because I don't want to mess it up, but proactive leaders fundamentally believe that they are free to choose how to act. And they know that their future is a product of their choices. The choices you make determine your future. That's a mentality of a proactive person.
Yeah, absolutely. My mom used to say, who, you know, I still revere to this day. I mean, you're talking about my mom who's demonstrated leadership. No, she hasn't been a CEO, but she has, you know, demonstrated those, you know, intangible characteristics of leadership. You know, at the age of 25, she lost her vision, right? Mm-hmm. So my mom has been blind my entire life, and I'm 35 years old. You know, I always like having fun with that, but I'm very proud of my age, right? But she took charge, okay, and didn't get down on herself in spite of her circumstances, right? And we're going to talk about that later on, you know, in one of my own personal segments. But it's what you just said. It's taking charge of your own choices. She made the choice that, listen, yes, I have this particular illness, difficulty, but the difficulty is not my identity.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about being a highly effective leader, and that's what you guys are in this leadership program because you want to be an effective leader. Nobody goes into leadership to stink at it, right? I mean, you want to be good at what it is that you're doing. And so recognizing now that you have control over your choices and not to blame other people is such a strong skill set that I think it took me a long time to learn. I think, you know, the way that I grew up in the circumstances that I was in, I used excuses a lot. Whatever it was, I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't skinny enough. I wasn't, you know, athletic enough. I mean, whatever it was going through, I always had an excuse for why I wasn't succeeding at something. And I think had I grasped this concept early enough, it would have really, you know, benefited me. I think there is a story, Viktor Frankl, and by all means research him and look him up because his story is amazing. I think so. But at the end of the day, he was a professor in Germany, was a Jew, and was captured during the Holocaust by Hitler and was put into a concentration camp. He
it's still recording.
So we're recording.
It's recording. We're back.
All right. So if this screws up on the video, our internet here, I'm not sure if it's weather related, but the internet keeps cutting in and out. So hopefully this is seamless and you're getting the recording. If not, it may come in chunks. We're not sure, but it says it's still recording. So we apologize for the little blip in it.
This is as authentic as it's going to get.
So we'll keep going from here and hopefully they can edit any of our parts. But we were talking about Viktor Frankl.
Absolutely.
Was put in a concentration camp, was a brilliant man, watched his family being killed. And because he was so intelligent, the Germans wanted to, at that time, they felt that they could perform experiments on him to glean knowledge from his brain, like basically to get the information from his brain. So they did these horrific experiments on him to try to steal his intellect, hoping that they would get something from him. And at the end of the day, in this horrible situation, he kind of came up with this theory, and that's what I want to kind of introduce to you now. He said basically, up to that point, there was what people considered genetic determinism. And that is basically, I'm a product of my genetics. So because of my family and they had alcoholism or they had anger management skills, well, I'm just going to be an angry person because I'm a product of my genetics. So that's genetic determinism. Then he talked about environmental determinism. And he says that is when we feel that we're a product of our environment. Because I grew up in this neighborhood, because I grew up in this environment, I'm never going to get out of it. And he cautioned that both of those leave room for us to make excuses, to be reactive and to blame others.
Sure.
Whereas he said if we would go to a third one that he kind of developed in the middle of this concentration camp, which he said the one thing they couldn't take away from me was my ability to choose how I reacted to everything. So he came up with a third theory called cognitive theory, where he says we are a product of our choices, and that regardless of our genetics and regardless of our environments, we can choose to rise above those. And that's not to say that your environment or that your genes don't play a part, but that ultimately we can choose to get out of that. And I think that was a perfect example of how effective proactive is. It is our choice. It doesn't matter what our environment is. It doesn't matter what our genes say. We can overcome that by the choices that we make.
Absolutely. I think that is so profound. Why is that thought process, that concept is so important to you? You appear to be very passionate about that. I know this is not an interview, but you know what I mean?
I think because I've had to figure that out for myself. I think I've allowed my environment and even my genetics, seeing what my family, endured. My dad was in jail. He was the head of a gang called the Black Diamonds. He was abusive to my mother.
Your dad was a gangster?
My dad, he still has the big Black Diamond tattoos. He was the head of the gang. In and out of jail. I think coming out of that, and they were really the ones that made the transition. They ended up, that is where, I think that's why faith is so important to me, because at that juncture in their life, they were introduced to their faith. And because of their faith, they came out of the environment that they were in. And so by the choices that they made, they ended up having an amazing life that I was able to grow up in. So I was able to see that their choices, and like I said, their choices were based on their faith, but again, it comes down to what choices you make. You can make the choice that even though he was in and out of jail, and even though he was an alcoholic, and even though he was abusive up to that point, my dad specifically came to a point where he made a choice and said, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so I saw that and was a byproduct of that. So I think it's been instilled in me.
Yeah, no.
How about you?
I think it's important to me because when you look around, your life, it's easy to make an excuse, or it's easy to blame others. I think that sometimes, the human brain sometimes can be manufactured or engineered to make an excuse. But, there's something about a good feel-good story, right? Whether it's an NFL player coming, from nothing and then, working hard and all of a sudden, he's rushing for 1,000 yards in the National Football League. Or it's a feel-good story like my mom, right? 25, years old, female losing her sight within 24 hours. And now she's left to raise 2 sons and be a wife, to a naval sailor, right? It's a feel-good story. And she and mom is still kicking, right? So, I think that it intrigues me to hear the feel-good stories because we can make excuses. But I think it leads us to the practices to become, or that to help us.
Because clearly being proactive isn't easy.
No.
For whatever reason, and I don't know where I heard this statistic a long time ago, but it takes less muscles, I gotta say this right, to frown than it does to smile. It's harder to smile than it is to frown. And I think it's the same way with making good choices. For some reason, our nature sometimes is, it's easier and it's quicker for us to just blame somebody else.
Or quit,
rather than step up and take responsibility. So just saying being proactive is easier than actually being proactive. So we have to work at that. So there's strategies to that.
Strategies and intentionalities behind that. So I want to give you the 6 practices to help you to become a proactive leader. Of those 6, Tammie and I have pulled one that's important to us, one or 2 that's important to us. So let me read them just so I can make sure that I am able to catch them all. So 1 is take initiative. 2 is carry your own weather. If you're listening right now, and if you haven't fallen asleep on us yet, no, just kidding. I want you to write that one down. Carry your own weather, okay? Number 3, use proactive language. That's a good one.
When we first talked about it, that's the one I picked to go over, and then I switched. So that, I'm you know.
Because it's all about what you say.
It's what about you say? I mean, and I go back to my faith in the scripture, but there is a verse that says life and death is in the power of your tongue.
Right.
And that basically says you can speak life or you can speak death over you.
Hallelujah.
What you say.
Welcome back.
This is why I like in person versus, I hate technology. I'm just going to say it. Every time. See, that's a reactive mentality. Every time it happens to me, yep. I should be more proactive.
Proactive says, you know what, we're going to get through this and it's going to be all right. And that carries us into where we left off with the 6 practices to help you to become a proactive leader. I hope we're showing you good leadership practices, even during these glitches, right? So number 3 was use proactive language. Number 4 is grow your circle of influence. That's a powerful one. We could spend 20 days discussing it, right? Number 5 is break negative cycles. Woo! That was a good one.
So many things that just happen naturally, that we live in that world of negativity. We do it like I just did. I hate technology. It's terrible. You know, so breaking those negative cycles.
Yeah, and avoid addictions, okay?
You know, and addictions, I think it needs to say, obviously that means, you know, drugs, alcohol, all the things that we know that are typically considered addictive things. But we were talking about this in class the other day, that for college students, a lot of times that addiction is social media. You know, I mean, there are addictions sometimes that, especially these college students, that are impacting the leader that they could be because they're spending too much time on social media and letting it influence them. So sometimes that addiction could be something, you know, like that.
Yeah, I look at avoid addictions. What are you focused on?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I'm going to take initiative really quickly. Like I said, I think originally when we talked about it, I wanted to go after proactive language. But as I looked over this more, I think I have a better story. Maybe that's the excuse. I just had a better story to tell you about taking initiative. So I'm going to lean into that one a little bit. When you're talking about taking initiative, primarily what they say is that proactive people act rather than be acted upon. So they're self-starters. These are people, proactive people are people that aren't going to just sit back and wait, but they are going to lean in and they're going to do. These are doers. And I think here we are in our coffee shop, which I'm hoping that the visual that you guys are getting aren't as fuzzy as what we're seeing on the screen, because right now the lighting looks bad and it's a little fuzzy. But what I want you to see behind me is that we're in a coffee shop. And this coffee shop is right in Jack's Beach. It's called the Cup of Joe. Okay, it's still recording. Okay, hopefully. So we are in the Cup of Joe coffee shop. And the story behind this, I mean, this is the story. Someday I'm going to write a book about this place. But I work for Lifework Leadership. And as I told you, it's a leadership development. And I think the most difficult thing about this job for me, especially coming from the university, was that this was a nonprofit. And working in the nonprofit world was very different for me, especially coming from corporate America. And one of the hardest things about the nonprofit was that there's an ask involved. You're always asking people for money, you're asking for support, you're asking for people to go through the program. So there's always this ask. And I think coming from where I came from, that was a difficult thing for me to do. I mean, as I told you, my dad worked in a steel mill, my mom worked in a grocery store. So in the world we grew up in, if you didn't have money or you didn't have something, you went and got another job. You didn't go ask somebody to help. So the concept was very difficult for me to embrace. And so I was laying in bed one night, struggling with finances for the nonprofit and asking the Lord, like, what could I do different than just asking people to support? And we kind of came up with this idea of doing a coffee shop. And so when I presented it to our board, hey, I want to start a coffee shop. And I wanted it to match our vision and what Lifework is about. And Lifework's vision is transforming leaders to transform the city. So we wanted to do a coffee shop that was doing just that it was taking people and it was transforming them, and that it was going to have an impact on our city, because that's what Lifework's about. And so when I pitched this idea to the board, On paper, it sounded great. Oh, that's awesome. Start a coffee shop, transform the city. Great. But we don't have money to cover payroll. So how are you going to start a coffee shop?
Right.
And so basically the board shut me down. I mean, when I say shut me down, they shut me down quickly. Absolutely not. That is crazy. That's too outside of the box. That's never going to work. We don't have the money. And it was at that point that I decided, you know what? I'm going to be proactive. This is one of those times in my life where I said, listen, I'm not going to not do this. I'm going to make this happen. And so then I had to say, all right, board, who I love the board, they're amazing people, but I had to go back to them and say, listen, I really think we need to do this. What are the parameters that you're going to set for me? Because I'll work in those parameters to make this happen. And ultimately they said, which sounds kind of funny now, but they were like, that's great. You can start your coffee shop. You just can't use any money. So start the coffee shop without any money and you can start it. And so long story short, a year and a half ago, we decided to do that. We found a place here at the beach, which is in the front of a rescue mission. It's Beaches Rescue and Recovery. And we decided that that's where we wanted to leave our footprint so that we were making a difference with the homeless people here in the rescue mission. And so we started into this. And I mean, I could take the next 6 days to talk about all the amazing things that happened at this coffee shop. But at the end of the day, we opened a fully functioning, a fully operational, licensed cafe without spending a dollar. I mean, $40,000 espresso machines, $3,000, refrigerators, paint, construction, electric, plumbing, tables, chairs, syrup, beans, you name it.
What's my favorite beverage?
Hot chocolate. We do have really good hot chocolate here.
Hot chocolate.
But we have been able to create a fully functioning coffee shop without spending a dollar. And it all came from taking initiative. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't take no for an answer. Correct. And we pushed forward. And now we have been able to give over $70,000 in the first year to the rescue mission. And we have been able to walk 9 homeless people through a job placement program. So being proactive, taking initiative, that is passionate. And it wasn't easy by any means, but I think that's the idea of proactive leaders they go out and do it anyways. Even when everybody says you can't do it and you know it, you go out and do it anyways. So that's my pitch basically on taking initiative.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. And secondly, she hasn't said it, but she's going to give the address to the Cup of Joe.
Oh, that's right.
Listen, the hot chocolate is amazing. All right.
Well, and you just got to come support it now, because you will walk in here and you will be with people like Len and I to a homeless person sitting next to us. So it is just the coolest environment to be in. So you got to come to the coffee shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my pitch,
take initiative, and you definitely took initiative with the coffee shop. One of my favorite ones that is very important to me is carry your own weather, right? Now, carry your own weather. What does that mean and what does it look like? In essence, I'm going to give you 3 C's to carrying your own weather. What was the gentleman's name that you spoke about earlier?
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl said pause. Now, first of all, leaders must be, transparent. They must have a spirit of self-deprecation, right? So I'm telling you that what Viktor Frankl said about carrying your own weather, I don't get it right all the time, okay? I don't. So he said pause. Stop, think, then choose, okay? So basically he was saying press pause before you explode. Again, I don't get it right all the time, okay? But one thing that I try to do is be proactive. Say, you know what, I'm gonna get this thing. Next time I'm faced with a situation or whatever the case may be, I'm gonna respond correctly, right? So I'm gonna give you 3 C's when it comes to carrying your own weather. The first C is calmness. The reason I like calmness is because your inner reality creates your outer form, right? So whatever you're feeling on the outside is gonna come out, okay? 100%, right? So staying calm, okay? So when you think of carrying your own weather, W-E-A-T-H-E-R, you're talking about, thunderstorms, right?
Right.
So thunderstorms, don't tell nobody, but I get scared sometimes.
See, and I miss my calling. I should have been a meteorologist. I sit at home and watch the weather.
You do?
I do. I love it.
Sometimes my house shakes and it makes me scared, But even though it's thundering and lightning on the outside, the inside of me, or I'm on the inside of my home in a very safe environment, I can carry my own weather. I can remain calm. So it's calmness. Whatever's going on the outside. Oh my gosh, I got this paper due. Oh my gosh, I got to do this. Oh my gosh, I got this deliverable. Oh my gosh, the oh my gosh moments, right? You stay calm. So that's first C. The second C is community, right? All right, community. Community is my favorite term in the dictionary ever. I love community. Why? It's because of you and I. We connected on community, in the spirit of community, and established and sustained an incredible relationship, right? Community, the last 5 letters is community, right? Because connection is the new currency. You got to be careful of who you partner with in life. You know, the whole negative Nancy's or whatever, you know, if you're a negative person, you know, like I can't do it, right?
And you see that in the weather. When somebody's kind of like, oh, it's a rainy day and it's gloomy outside, right, you tend to be like, oh yeah, it's a rainy day, it's gloomy outside. That transposes itself.
Exactly. Exactly. It's community. Because what happens is my dad, who just got his PhD, just like yourself, he said, you've got to be, Dr. Leonard Chatman Sr., I'm Junior, he said, you've got to be careful of what you allow to enter your ears because it'll enter your heart, right? So if you allow negative people or community into your ears, it will enter your heart, right? And then the last one, creativity. You got to get creative when it talks about carrying your own weather, okay? So if you're in the Florida heat, right, you'll do anything to stay calm, right? If you put a hat over your head to keep the sun rays from grazing on your neck, right? Or you put some, you know, you go sockless and wear some flip-flops.
Right.
Or if it's in the dead heat of the winter, right, you put on a designer scarf, put it around your neck, you know what I mean? You get creative to keep yourself warm. You get creative to keep yourself cool, right?
So or even to have fun in it. It's a thunderstorm out, take out your umbrella, go out in your bare feet, slop in a puddle. Like, be creative, make it fun, even with the weather. So even if it is something that may be perceived as negative, right, if you're creative, you can make something fun out of it.
You can, because regardless of what's going on the outside, the inside is what matters. And listen, life is good. My parents used to say, life is terrific. Let me tell you, life is terrific. No matter what's going on, no matter the thunderstorms, you remain calm. No matter who is around you, you develop a strong community. And no matter what type of situations occur, you get creative.
That's right. So we're kind of drawing to an end. Quick recap, because I know we've been, you know, kind of limited to a time, and now we've given you 10 different Zoom videos that hopefully they will connect for us. I think one thing you've seen is Len and I could talk a lot about a lot of things. We talk quickly, so we hope you were able to glean a few things from it. You know, in review, a habit to being a highly effective leader is being proactive. Proactive means taking responsibility for yourself. 2 ways we talked about specifically to do it is 1, take initiative, that's take control, be a self-starter. 2 is carry your own weather, what it is. Stay calm, stay in a community that's supportive, stay creative. I think how we want to end it for you, and this goes back to my elementary school days. I started as an elementary school teacher. So in my world, there has to be a visual demonstration of what we want you to do. And so I think it was best when you stated in your carrying your own weather, the idea of pause. And so I'm gonna go get our materials while you review the pause moment again, just to refresh them on what they say, and then we'll demonstrate our last activity.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're talking about the calmness, the community. My mentor, I put him in my first book that I wrote, and we said, it's not what people say, it's what you answer to, right? So what you're going to answer to is that, you know what? I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I can do this. That's what you're going to answer to as proactive.
So when we talk about, one of the ways to do that is to pause, to stop, to think before you act. So before you respond with either a negative response or a reactive response instead of being proactive, if you can pause before your response, a lot of times we can stop the negativity, stop the reactive response if we just pause first. And so I think what a good visual of this is, up here I have a bottle of water and I have a bottle of pop, which we make fun of this because clearly I'm from the north, but I call it pop. So soda, pop, whatever it is. But what I want to show you is if you are a reactive person, and we didn't practice this before, so this will be what I brought a second bottle of pop in case it didn't work as much as I want. But if you are a reactive person, blaming others, not pausing first, not carrying your own weather, not taking initiative, if you are a reactive person, this is what a certain circumstance might look like to you. So this is the circumstance. Things are bad. It's not going well. I don't know how to react to it. And then all of a sudden, you explode. You explode because of what was inside. It blew up and you exploded. Whereas, I still drink that later.
Right.
Whereas, if you're calm and you're a proactive person and you take responsibility for what's happening, you can shake it, you can throw things at you, horrible things can happen as much as you want. Doesn't matter how bad it is, because when you open it and you react, nothing, because of what's on the inside. So a proactive person is calm, what's on the inside.
And it feels better going down too. Take a swig.
Now I gotta clean this up. So go ahead and close us out, Len.
Listen, it has been an absolute joy engaging with you all. We've had some techie situations going on, but I hope that you felt our calmness, okay, because of the community that she and I have built over the last year. And we've gotten creative. Clearly, all right, we're going to drink that, right? But by far, she is one of the smartest ladies that I know beyond my wife. Wife is number one. I see the hookup.
You
saw that?
Good.
I did that.
So,
all right.
guys, thank you for letting us come to you. We hope we brought you something a little different, something a little unique, something that was engaging and fun. And at the end of the day, if there was one thing you take away from this, then it was successful for us. So go out there, be proactive leaders. Stop in the coffee shop. We'd love to meet you. We're here a lot, so let us know. We'd love to meet you here, and hopefully we'll see you next time where we'd like to go after another one of these habits. So see you guys. Have a great day.
Fantastic. And I'm so glad everyone was able to listen to Len and Tammie and just hear some really energetic, passionate ideas on how to be proactive and really make a difference in your daily routines and your daily habits. So thank you everyone for attending. This session will be recorded, it is being recorded, and will be available on the Tailored Leadership Institute homepage, as well as the YouTube page that we have. I put the YouTube page over in the chat box for you to have access to it. It's a great resource for all of you to take a look at, not only videos like the one that you saw today, but also hear from students, previous speakers. It's just a really amazing resource to showcase all that we do at the Tailored Leadership Institute and how we are changing lives daily. So thank you to Tammie and Len for an amazing presentation. Students, both who attended, who joined live, or folks who are going to watch the recorded session, thank you so much for being here. Know that our next session will be November 19th at the same time, and it will be live, so we'll add some excitement to that. So we're looking forward to having you all attend, and please invite everyone and anyone who wants to become the best versions of themselves. So continue being leaders on campus in the community, and know that we appreciate all of you. And once again, thank you for being part of today's special event.